Well, race riot really is a misnomer as applied to the 1921 Tulsa race riot, because that doesn't aptly describe what really happened. Governor Frank Keating, for example, said this was an assault on the black community. That the causes of the riot are things like jealousy of the success of the black community, a desire for the land in Greenwood, the general um, racist climate that existed in Tulsa and Oklahoma and the United States generally. So it's a powder keg waiting on a spark. The spark was an incident between two teenagers here in Tulsa. Sarah Page, 17-year-old white girl who operated an elevator in the Drexel building downtown. Dick Rowland, 19-year-old black boy who was a shoeshine boy downtown. And it began on Monday, May 30th. Dick Rowland was working, needed to use the restroom. He went over to the Drexel building where Sarah was working on the elevator. He got on the elevator. Something happened. Not sure exactly what happened, but the elevator jerked or lurched, and Dick Rowland bumped into Sarah Page. She screamed, and the way the story unfolded was that Dick Rowland had assaulted Sarah Page on the elevator that day. Essentially, the Tulsa Tribune said that Dick Rowland, a black boy, had attempted to rape Sarah Page, a white girl, in broad daylight in a public space in downtown Tulsa. That's the essence of what the Tulsa Tribune said. And if one believed that, one might well be inflamed by that, by those allegations. And so that's a trigger event that got everything going. Dick Rowland was arrested. Ultimately, Sarah Page would recant. She would say that nothing happened on that elevator. But by the time she got to that point, it was really too late, and things had gotten woefully out of hand. Altercations had ensued down at the courthouse. Words had been exchanged. Pawn shops were looted by large white mobs who ultimately came over into Greenwood and obliterated the whole community. Many people were killed, wounded, chased from town. Buildings were set on fire, and the fact that the mob itself prevented the fire department from doing its job. So things just, whatever was burning continued to burn and spread. The police were not doing their job. Some of the people in the mob were actually deputized, and so operated under color of law and authority. The National Guard ultimately was called in, but by the time the National Guard got here and took control, it was late, and the devastation or the deed had been done. One of the more interesting aspects of what happened during the period of the riot itself was that black men were rounded up and taken to internment centers, very much like people of Japanese ancestry were taken to internment centers during World War II. And that was ostensibly for their own protection. But the reality was that it left the communities inhabited by women and children who were largely defenseless against the onslaught of this mob. Well, the story, of course, is the story of the people. It's not really a story about the 1920 Tulsa race riot, the event. It's a story about people. And in this particular instance, it's a story about character and resilience. So the people decided that they would rebuild, hosted a national convention in 1925, the National Negro Business League Convention. That's only 4 years after the riot. We end up with what we have today, which is not really an entrepreneurial community, but more of a historical and cultural destination. The Greenwood Cultural Center houses artifacts and photos and historical memorabilia, does some community programming. There's the Greenwood Chamber of Commerce, which is essentially the Black Chamber of Commerce, which is interested in business development in Greenwood and beyond into North Tulsa. There are a few small businesses in the 100 block of Greenwood, but certainly nothing like the community existed in its heyday.